another episode of Branching Out with Sierra. In today's episode, I just wanted to spend some time reflecting. Maybe there's not a big lesson in it. Maybe you will take something away. But I wanted to reflect on a conversation I was having with a client just this week. Today's episode is called The Growth You Didn't Plan For, because as we were reflecting on the year and the experiences that this individual had, we realized that as leaders, oftentimes you get a lot that you don't ask for, and the growth kind of happens through those situations, those challenges. And so a lot of times I am talking about goal setting, and it's very focused, intentional growth. It's something that has been planned out for a long period of time. You know what skill set you want to develop, and you know exactly what you need to do to get there. But I'm realizing through a conversation with this client this week that a lot of the real growth is coming for the things you didn't ask for at all. And so I want to talk about that at a high level today and see if maybe it can help you consider the growth that you're experiencing as well, and maybe realize that the growth is real transformation and not necessarily an added skill set. And what I mean by that is a lot of times I feel like when we go through a course, for example, we sign up for a course, there's a list of outcomes of what we can expect to achieve by the end of that course. And I feel like we walk away from that adding to our toolbox, right? Okay, I've learned this new thing, this new skill. I've added on to what I already have. But the conversation that I was having with this client helped me to realize that this was more of a transformation of the individual than it was adding on to the toolbox, because she was a new person now, a new leader, and it isn't something that she's going to forget, the things that she did and learned through it. You know, even if it is forgotten, it's still a part of her, and she's now making decisions differently because those things have happened, and I feel like it changed the leader that she became. So that's what I want to reflect on a little bit today. Sometimes I feel like as leaders, the changes that have to take place in your life to be an effective leader, a leader of your business, a leader of your family, no matter what it is you're leading, the changes that have to take place behind the scenes to make it through, to thrive, to support the people around you aren't often talked about. So, for example, thinking about moving into a leadership position, and actually I'm pretty sure the Leadership Unscripted I chose today has to do with this, but when you're working alongside a group of people as peers for so long, and then you step into a leadership role, how that shifts the relationship. And you're very comfortable with what your role was then. They were very comfortable with your identity and how you interacted when you were in that role. But now moving into a new position, that changes everything. And maybe that's not something you're talking about. So as your responsibility grows within the organization, your peer relationships are going to be changing. Sometimes you have to make decisions that are in the best interest of the organization, and it might change how well liked you are. And you have to choose to do what is right and in alignment with the values of yourself and the values of your company, not just do what people want you to do, right? And so you might have to step away from being liked in favor of being in alignment, being clear on what you value and what the goals of the company are. You know, I really feel like there are a lot of changes taking place behind the scenes for people. And it might even sometimes feel like a loss of a relationship, a loss of what was and your identity in that role. And if you don't have someone to talk to about those things, it can be very lonely. So as I mentioned, I feel like this type of growth feels different than other growth. And so for this client, it was a lot of challenges with her clients that she was having. Truly disrespect from clients, pushing back on everything, a lot of questioning her. And she had to stand up for herself in a way that she never had before. And through that process, she has become so much more confident in who she is and set very clear boundaries of how she is to be treated and respected by clients. And if a client is not going to give that level of respect, then they are not going to be a client. Just this whole shift based on during that time, of course, it was terrible for her and she didn't know how she was going to get through it. And it was something she'd never experienced before. But now that she's on the other side of it, when we were reflecting on it, we realized that had she not gone through those things this year, that her growth this year would have not have been as significant. So in a weird way, we were grateful that all those terrible things happened because of the transformation that took place in her through that. So that's what I mean about the transformation, becoming someone new rather than just learning something new, and a skill set that you can apply later. So it can, in the moment, feel very disorienting, but really the payoff is so much greater and has changed the way that she is going to manage client relationships in the future. So if you think about, the things that we might avoid, right? We might avoid the difficult conversation with someone, the hard conversation where you're telling someone that they're not living up to your expectations. And right, maybe you have a good relationship with them, but they're not living up to your expectations. And it's a performance issue and you have to talk about it. That's not fun. And that's often something that I hear of my clients avoiding all the time, right? Or maybe you resist making a decision, a hard decision, because you're afraid that after you make it, what if you regret it and it was the wrong decision and it doesn't work out and people are going to judge your ability based off of the results of the decisions that you're making? How is that going to make you look? So there's a lot of fear in relation to the decision. That discomfort with the decision making or having the difficult conversation, if you keep putting it off, you keep delaying it, it's just continued, right? The discomfort continues and probably gets worse until at some point you have to handle it. And so it can be costly to wait. But the people who push through that and face those things head on are really the ones that are growing the most. And getting the most out of those experiences. So when you're avoiding something, it can feel like you're protecting yourself, but ultimately it delays the growth that you need to experience to be the effective leader that you can be. So I really want to make sure that while we're thinking about this topic and reflecting today, that we're honoring the discomfort and struggle that leaders are going through, whether it's the exhaustion of being the decision maker and feeling so much pressure on you. Maybe it's conflict. Maybe you're grieving what has changed, your relationships that have changed. And so it really, this episode is to allow you to pause and reflect on who you are as a leader now in comparison to maybe who you were a year ago. And what were those difficult situations that now looking back, you're kind of glad you went through because they shaped you as a person and the way you will lead moving forward. That's what I'm hoping this. So again, I'm not trying to teach you something today. I'm just trying to get you to slow down and think about that because it was a realization I had with a client. And I really think it could benefit other people to kind of go through that same reflection process. So the reason I also wanted to go with this is because we had a leadership unscripted submission from a listener that kind of talked about some of the leadership challenges you have to face that maybe aren't talked about. This one said, since getting promoted, I've noticed fewer people confide in me or invite me into conversations. I didn't realize how isolating leadership could feel. How do I rebuild connection without blurring boundaries? That's so challenging to know how you can continue to have that relationship but not blur the line because they feel like you can't be friends anymore. So what can that look like? So of course these people are trying to recalibrate how they relate to you, how they're going to connect with you, and that's going to take time. I wouldn't see it as rejection, it's adjustment, and they're trying to figure out what it looks like. And I feel like someone else had the same exact challenge, just maybe framed a little bit differently in the past. The more you can openly talk about it, I think the easier it is, to be able to say, hey, I know things have shifted a little bit, but I really want to continue to focus on, leading this company effectively, giving you the support that you need. I think that when you show that you're thoughtful and you care and you ask questions about people, and they don't see you as now you have a leadership title, so you're an authority, and that you're talking down to them and what you say is more important now. You have to remain curious and come to meetings ready to ask questions and just listen, not have to have the final word in everything. Reflect back what you're hearing to show understanding of your people and show that you have clarity. Asking open-ended questions to get conversations going. I think showing that interest in your people is going to help rebuild that connection that maybe you once had, but I think that it's going to take time and you have to allow for the adjustment. And then just creating a safe place for them to have the conversation with you about how things have shifted, maybe not in a group setting, right? So providing a safe environment for them to have one-on-one time with you and make it a regular thing that you meet with your team one-on-one with certain regularity. To be able to check in, see how things are going, show that you care. I think that the consistency of that is going to show that just because you are now in a leadership role and they feel as if they, answer to you, that doesn't have to shift the level of connection that you have. You said that they're not inviting you into conversations. That's probably out of fear. Like, think about it from their perspective. Can they be open and honest about how they're feeling in ways that they could before? Is there going to be a consequence for that? Is it going to be used against them if they say something in front of you? So I think really thinking about the shift that they're experiencing as well, not just seeing it from your perspective, but how are they seeing it? How are they, feeling their way through it? But I would accept that some distance is healthy and is normal, and to allow that kind of process to take place. Just stay interested throughout. That's my recommendation for that, but I think it perfectly fits into this episode because it is one of the unspoken things, the lonely piece of leadership that maybe people aren't talking as much about. And find other leaders that you can build a relationship with and openly talk about these challenges and get feedback from them, so that you do have a circle that you feel like you can trust and confide in, and aren't as lonely as you mentioned in that submission. So I hope that's helpful. For the leadership in the wild, it's an obvious one. I'm not going to say a name, but it's the client that I had this reflection with. When I asked her, what word she would use to describe 2025, her answer at first shocked me. She said awesome. And when I thought about her year, I was like, she had a really tough year. She went through a lot. There were a lot of difficult conversations. And so, of course, I asked why. And she said, I don't know. I don't know why I would say it was awesome because I went through a lot of really hard stuff. And I said, well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about who you are now, having gone through it. And then after like 10 minutes of her reflecting and talking out loud, I'm like, do you know why it was awesome now? That's who I want to acknowledge, because she did the hard things and the payoff was great. I've seen her grow so much as a leader. And being able to kind of face those fears immediately rather than stall when she sees something that can be done differently or, done better in her opinion. She's not afraid to go to her boss and come with a solution to the problem, come with a plan in place and a proposal of this is how we can approach this. So I just want to give her a shout out because she has experienced so much growth this year because she faced the challenges head on and didn't let them get her down. So obviously the branching out challenge for this week ties back to this growth that you didn't plan for. I really want you to think about how you've grown as a leader. What are those difficult experiences that you may have had that have now shaped who you are? And how can you go into the next difficult situation that you're facing with the mindset of how can I grow through this? What can I do to grow the most through this experience? And a lot of times that's facing it head on rather than delaying it. So that is my reflection for this week. I hope you enjoyed that and found some value in it as well. As always, if you think someone would benefit from this, please share it with them. That's my hope, is that one person listening to an episode found it worth it. It makes it worth my time to be sharing my reflections with you. As a reminder, I'm going to throw this out here often. We're looking for sponsors. So if you're looking to get involved in Branching Out with Sierra this year, we would love to hear from you. Talk about what that could look like. We have some packages laid out, but we are ready to customize them for you to make it make sense for your business and your goals. So let us know. You can reach us at info@branchingoutpodcast.com. As always, we drop a new episode on Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time. So be sure to follow so you're getting those notifications. And until next time, keep branching out.